Hi, I'm Carl Isaacs for CNN 10. This fall, Rutgers University says it will require its students to be vaccinated against COVID-19. Can it legally do that? That is the question that leads off today's show. Rutgers is based in the state of New Jersey. It's a large school. It has 3 main campuses and enrolls more than 70,000 students in all. And it's one of the first American universities to announce that most of those students will need a coronavirus vaccine come fall semester. There are exceptions to this rule. Rutgers says students can request an exemption, permission to attend without getting the vaccine for religious or medical reasons, and the rule won't apply at all to students who attend online without actually setting foot on Rutgers campuses. But the rest of those who do will have to show proof they've been vaccinated. At this point, Rutgers faculty is not required to get the vaccines, though they are strongly encouraged to do so. Everyone on campus still has to participate in Rutgers COVID testing programs, and everyone is still required to wear masks and keep their distance from one another on campus. The university says the decisions are in support of its commitment to health and safety for all members of its community, but it is a change from earlier this year when a senior chancellor said that in line with Rutgers' stance on protecting human liberties, the vaccine was not mandatory. Most colleges require students to have certain vaccines before they can attend classes. What's different about the coronavirus vaccines is that they haven't been formally approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. The 3 vaccines that Americans can get are authorized for emergency use, and the FDA says people have to be informed that they may either accept or refuse the drugs. That's where experts say it's not clear if Rutgers or any organization can legally require people to be vaccinated. Some say that people's choice, whether or not to get a vaccine, needs to be protected. Others say that courts will probably side with employers or states that require the vaccine, but that it's been argued in the past that the drugs are still experimental and should not be required. Parts of Middle Tennessee are struggling to recover from deadly flash flooding that started last weekend. Severe storms that rolled over the state on Saturday triggered a flash flood emergency. Some places got 5 to 9 inches of rain. That's more than Tennessee usually gets in the entire month of March. The forecast calls for another inch to 1.5 inches of rain tomorrow. That's normally no big deal, according to the National Weather Service, but because the state is so waterlogged now, the additional precipitation could further swell rivers, set a new record for rainfall, and trigger additional flash flooding.
In the U.S., flash floods kill more people than tornadoes, hurricanes, or lightning. A flash flood creates a rush of moving water that can sweep a grown man off his feet, a car off the road, and even your entire home off its foundation. When the ground becomes so saturated that water can no longer seep into the soil, it begins to run off quickly into rivers and streams, and this causes a rise in water and a flash. Densely populated areas have an extremely high risk of flash flooding, with the additional concrete and less grassy areas for the water to soak into the soil, and they can see flash flooding very quickly. In mountainous terrain, the combination of gravity plus the easy runoff can lead to catastrophic flooding when all of that water is funneled into rivers, creeks, and even the valleys. Remember, flash flooding can happen in the blink of an eye. That's why it's important to stay alert and pay attention in case a flash flood watch or warning is issued for your area.
10-second trivia. In terms of land area, what is the largest country in Africa? Nigeria, Algeria, Democratic Republic of Congo, or Sudan? Algeria is the largest country in area, but it's mostly desert. Nigeria has Africa's largest population. Almost 220 million people live in Nigeria, and the nation has the largest economy in Africa. But the CIA estimates that 70% of Nigerians live in poverty, and their country also struggles with corruption, crime, and terrorism. Boko Haram is based there. It's one of the largest terrorist groups in Africa. Since its uprising in 2009, the Nigerian military and its allies have made progress against the Islamic militants. But Boko Haram has kidnapped, displaced, or orphaned hundreds of children, and a CNN hero has a heart for helping them.
Morning. My name is Zanna Bukar Mustafa. I'm the director of the Future Progress Islamic Foundation. We started with 36 orphans, but currently we have about 860 of them. Good morning. We don't mind where you hail from, what's your religion, what's your ethnicity. So gender does not matter. You find the 2/3 of the population in this school are girls.
For me, being an orphan, I feel I have lost something from a normal girl child to an orphan. But as I step into Future Prowess, all other things have been provided.
If you can be the leaders of tomorrow, you have to start showing leadership examples now. We give a sort of a psychosocial support to these children. How do you heal the rivalry? How do we come in together? And that is when we accept the diversities of others.
There are kids from military background and then civilians. Some of them are from the Boko Haram background. All of us have a different idea from what our parents have.
There is much counseling, there is much play. We are also giving them uniform, books. We have professors coming here to teach various courses. We are using rice and beans every day. Most of the students come to school empty. They have not eaten anything. And then we are giving them some nutritional support and food. So who can read this for me? What is it? We have 2013 students currently enrolled in the Future Prowess Islamic Foundation. It is unique. It brings harmonious working relationship between all stratas of the society. It is located in the riverbank where we have our own fish farm, greenhouse. This is a lemon, and you can see it has started fruiting. And then the irrigation. We have about 6 hectares of farmland to get a sort of livelihood. Despite the unpleasant experiences they went through, how are you? If they see me, they welcome me with a smile. They see themselves as being friends, brothers, sisters. They all call me Father. I am a peace builder. I am aiming to achieve peace at the end. We are in a community where every segment of the society is being ravaged. What keeps me going is the resilience of these children. Whenever I see their faces, it gives me hope. It keeps my dream alive.
Well, this is something new. An artist creates a portrait of a humanoid robot. After that, the robot paints its own interpretation of the portrait. Then, the robot's painting, along with a 12-second video clip of the robot doing the painting, goes up for auction. And finally, a human pays more than $688,000 for it. The video clip was offered as a non-fungible token, a new way to prove you own a digital artwork, even if it's widely shared. Now, some of you may be thinking, you've gotta be kidding me. Why then go to the trouble of paying your hard-earned Monet to O'Keefe some Pizarro digital token that anyone else could Goya download with Matisse? I guess if you've got the Chagall to take the Volaz guesswork out of who its true Claper is, you can callow yourself its one and only Michelangelo. 10-second trivia. Which of these historic ships was launched first? HMS Bounty, USS Constitution, Bismarck, or HMS Endeavour? Of these options, the Endeavour was oldest. It sailed for Tahiti in 1768. The more modern cargo ship we told you about last week, the Ever Given, was still stuck when we produced this show Sunday night. Since it ran aground last Tuesday, the Ever Given has been single-handedly blocking the Suez Canal in Egypt, and that's the fastest maritime passageway between Europe and East Africa, India, and Oceania. Hundreds of ships have joined the line to get through the Suez Canal. Lloyd's List, a shipping news company, estimates that the global shipping industry is losing $400 million per hour because of the delay. There have been multiple attempts to free the ship at high tide, and Egypt's president has ordered that some cargo containers be removed from the vessel to lighten its load.
Efforts continue to dislodge the massive container ship blocking one of the world's most important waterways. But the ship has only budged slightly. Almost as long as the Empire State Building is tall, the Ever Given got stuck Tuesday, navigating through a sandstorm and 40-knot winds. Initially, it was thought that high winds in a sandstorm were the cause for the grounding of the Ever Given. Now we've heard from the chairman of the Suez Canal Authority that perhaps human and technical error are also to blame. Dredging continues as attempts to free the carrier during high tide weren't successful enough to refloat the ship. With around 12% of global trade volume typically passing through the Suez Canal, countries around the world are pitching in. The Dutch salvage company brought in to help is sending a crane and 2 tugboats heavier than these, hoping to free the ship before its precarious position gets worse.
You have to start worrying about the vessel rolling. You have to worry about the vessel cracking. The nightmare scenario of all time is the vessel breaks apart. And that would be not weeks or days of salvage, but months.
Meanwhile, traffic remains at a standstill in a waterway that normally handles the equivalent of $10 billion a day in cargo. More than 320 ships are backed up in either direction. Their only alternative is to divert around the southern tip of Africa, adding about a week to the journey.
This is going to be costing extra fuel, an extra 3,500 miles, 7 days steaming. So we're about to see, it in the pocketbook here real soon.
The backlog will also be costly for vessels waiting in place. About a dozen are carrying livestock at risk of dying if the situation is not resolved within a few days. Japanese shipping company Shoei Kisen KK, who own the Ever Given, told CNN they're bracing for lawsuits, but insists their priority right now is refloating the ship as soon as possible. Executives even bowed in apology Friday, but with costs skyrocketing for the global shipping industry, saying sorry might not be enough.
In 2019, during the Christian Holy Week between Palm Sunday and Easter, the roof of Europe's most famous Gothic cathedral caught fire. No one was hurt when the top of Notre Dame went up in flames, and many of its artifacts survived, from its bell towers to its great organ to a crown of thorns that some believe is the crown of thorns that was placed on the head of Jesus Christ. Authorities still don't know what caused the fire, but 2 years later, during this Holy Week of 2021, experts are moving forward to rebuild the medieval monument.
It was one of the most heartbreaking sights of a tragic afternoon. The towering spire of the Cathedral of Notre Dame came crashing to the ground as a devastating fire swept through the roof. But now, a more encouraging image of spires crashing down. In a forest south of Le Mans, France, a harvest of mighty oaks is underway. The first of 200-year-old trees needed to rebuild the spire and roof support beams destroyed by the fire. In all, 1,000 trees will be needed.
Well, there's been some opposition from environmental groups about the use of centuries-old trees to rebuild Notre Dame. The forestry people here say it's a testament to the richness of natural resources in this country, that in this forest alone there are more than 100,000 trees that are over 150 years old.
At the church itself, there is no resounding pipe organ playing just yet, but as CNN discovered when it got rare access to the cathedral, the walls have been cleaned and stabilized, some of the stained glass windows and ancient stone statuary already restored. There remains a gaping hole in the roof, though, covered only with plastic to keep out the elements. For that, workers are now building 90-foot-tall walls of scaffolding inside the cathedral, which will eventually support a temporary platform for restoring Notre Dame's unique vaulted ceiling, much of which was destroyed or damaged in the fire. Architects say once the platform is in place, precisely engineered wooden arches will provide the bracing to reconstruct the styrofoam stone ceiling vaults. Once all that is done, the engineers will turn their attention to rebuilding the roof itself, reconstructing the spire, and replacing the interior roof beams using the oak that is now being cut, exactly in the same fashion as those that were destroyed in the fire.
There were hundreds of ideas from the public suggesting more modern ways to rebuild Notre Dame, but in the end, President Macron decided that it should be rebuilt exactly as it was, albeit with better fire protection.
Reconstructing the cathedral as it was seems to be, more or less, a popular idea.
Let's say you're wandering around Washington State one night and you just happen to look up and see this. You're probably going to have some questions. Was it a shooting star, meteor shower, comet, or aliens? Experts say probably not. They believe it was the remains of a SpaceX rocket that recently carried dozens of satellites into orbit. The rocket apparently didn't burn up properly and caused the light show instead. It wasn't expected to hurt anything. Does this mean there's nothing to atmosphere? Does it go against outdoor burning laws? At least the cleanup will be a debris. It's as fast as a rocket and plays a starring role in the night sky, even if at the end of the day, you're witnessing a breakup. On this last day of March 2021, we hope you're doing well, and thank you for watching CNN 10. I'm Carl Azuz. Coronavirus cases and theories are first up today. When it comes to the spread of the disease, it's a mixed bag in Europe. Cases have been decreasing in the United Kingdom. They're on the rise in France and Germany. In Brazil, a new variant or version of coronavirus has been spreading, and it's been sickening more young people than previous strains have. And across the United States, new cases may be on the rise once again. Since the start of the year, there's been an overall drop in the number of new positive tests recorded each day. The average number for last week was 61,632 cases per day. At one point in January, the Centers for Disease Control recorded more than 300,000 new positive tests per day. However, health officials say the latest numbers are going in the wrong direction. According to Johns Hopkins University, just under half the states in America recorded an increase over the past week. New cases are holding steady in 19 other states and decreasing in 5. But the CDC is concerned that another wave of cases may be on the way. Early this month, several U.S. states lifted their requirements for people to wear masks in public. With decreasing cases at the time, governors said people should be able to make their own decisions about masks. President Joe Biden spoke out against that, and now he's once again asking state and local leaders to put mask requirements back in place.
The failure to take this virus seriously, precisely what got us in this mess in the first place. Mask up. Mask up. It's a patriotic duty.
The international search for answers continues into how all this got started. Initially, health officials said coronavirus originated late last year at a seafood market in Wuhan, China. The former director of the CDC recently suggested that in his opinion, COVID-19 originated in a laboratory in China, that it was being studied by people and might have accidentally escaped into the public. Yesterday, the Director General of the World Health Organization said investigators should take a deeper look into the lab origins theory, and he criticized China for not giving international investigators enough access to information. But at this point, the WHO does not think a lab is where the outbreak started.
After a year of wrangling and delays, the WHO is set to finally publish their first report into one of the most important questions over this novel coronavirus. Where did it start? A copy of the report obtained by CNN ahead of its official release reveals that first, and most importantly, they conclude they don't yet know for sure. The report says that among 4 possible sources for the virus, the most likely is it began in bats and then moved through another animal to humans. How that happened remains unclear, but the report says more urgent testing and investigation is needed of wild animal markets in Wuhan and the province it's in, Hubei, and the farms in China that supply them. It says evidence suggests the well-known Hunan seafood market was involved in the early spread, but its role is still unclear. And that while about half the December 2019 cases had links to markets like these, only a quarter were linked only to Hunan, meaning this particular market may not have been the only source of the outbreaks. That suggests the virus was spread more widely that first month than thought before. The report also discusses records of a rise of influenza-like illness in Hubei and 6 neighbouring areas in China in December 2019. That was also reported by CNN late last year, citing leaked Chinese documents. It is unclear whether that is linked to coronavirus's early spread. The report also deals with the lab leak theory, saying it was the least likely scenario. Some scientists and governments have questioned China's involvement in the investigation, accusing it of not being transparent on the pandemic, a claim that Beijing denies. And much of the data the WHO had to work on was supplied by China. But the report is 123 pages long with annexes. It is a serious body of work, and it recommends further digging into blood banks storing historical samples from residents in Hubei over years, into more tissue samples where available, and into wildlife farming. More questions have emerged from the report, but it gives the world some insight to help to try and prevent a pandemic like this from happening in the future.
10-second trivia. In what nation would you find the world's longest man-made waterway? Italy, Egypt, Panama, or China? The Grand Canal. China's Grand Canal is more than 1,100 miles long. But our focus today is on another international waterway that's located in Egypt. The Suez Canal. It's open again after the giant container ship that was blocking it was finally freed earlier this week. The man-made canal has been operating since 1870. At that time, fewer than 2 ships on average sailed through it each day. Now there are dozens, and many of them are huge. The Ever Given, which got stuck in the Suez Canal last week, can carry 20,000 shipping containers. The waterway has been widened on several occasions in recent years to accommodate ships like this. Shipping companies say that vessels like the Ever Given make it more efficient and environmentally friendly to move large amounts of goods around the globe. But when there's a problem with one of these ships, it can be a big one, and in the case of the Ever Given, it affected an entire industry.
Tugboats blast their horns as the ship blocking the Suez Canal is finally freed. Taking advantage of a high tide, a team of about 10 tugboats dislodges the Ever Given, unblocking the crucial canal. The first signs of progress coming overnight when the stern was pulled off one bank. Then the bow was freed, which had been lodged in the other bank, even after digging, dredging, and offloading some weight.
We used the water power that was in the canal with the returning tide to push the vessel where we were pulling it.
The ship has been moved to a wider waterway to check it for damage from the grounding.
That could cause cracking. It can cause all sorts of damage to the vessel, internal and external.
The ship, 220,000 tons and almost as long as the Empire State Building is high, got stuck last Tuesday, wedged crosswise. If it hadn't been freed by tugboats, experts spoke of unloading the ship by erecting giant cranes or using helicopters, while all other ships would detour all the way around Africa. The blockage caused a growing backup of over 400 tankers and freighters, putting perishable cargo like livestock at risk, causing fuel rationing in Syria and driving up shipping prices.
What you're looking at now is several months of disruption for global supply chains.
There is now a very high risk that once the canal opens, within a week of that opening, we will have congestion problems, especially in Europe.
The cause of the grounding could be 40-knot winds and a sandstorm, canal authorities say, or technical or human error.
You'll definitely see some changes in the operation of the Suez Canal when it comes to the operation of these ultra-large vessels going through. Unfortunately, rules, regulations, oversight for vessels haven't stayed apace to the vessel's size.
The incident, experts say, highlighting our precarious dependence on global, just-in-time delivery using megaships.
The past week has really highlighted the maritime transportation system. The grounding of Ever Given really demonstrated how vital maritime transportation is and also how fragile it is. So these large vessels have the potential to cause disruptions on a global scale.
Authorities say they'll work 24/7 to get through the backlog of waiting ships. The chairman of the Suez Canal Authority estimates that even at that pace, it could take at least 3 days to end the congestion. To get a sense of what was lost during this crisis, usually 80 to 90 ships pass each day through the Suez Canal. Nearly $10 billion worth of trade passes through the canal each day. Brian Todd, CNN, Washington.
A non-stop flight between Japan and California covers about 5,500 miles and takes between 10 and 12 hours. But it could be just 3 hours if the Ariane AS-3 gets off the ground. This is a concept of a passenger plane that could travel faster than Mach 4, 3,800 miles per hour. It hasn't been built yet, but if and when that happens, its makers say it could carry as many as 50 passengers at supersonic speeds by the end of the decade. Some will like the sound of that. It's plain to see why this would make a boom in the industry. And there's probably some cabin pressure on airlines to climb higher and fly faster when the sky's the limit. But before we buckle up and make sure our tray tables are in the upright and blocked position, let's get our heads out of the clouds and take a deep breath through our oxygen masks, because this project needs to take flight before we can look out the window and see the future. This is your Captain Carl Azus reporting for CNN 10, Concordia Lutheran High School. It's great to have you aboard from Tomball, Texas. We hope you'll travel with us again tomorrow.